Elizabeth Beigel, and I'm going to be doing an industry analysis over the Ford Motor Company. In 1903, Ford Motor Company was incorporated. They were incorporated with 12 investors and $1,000. Hello, my name is Elizabeth Beigel, and I'm going to be doing a presentation over the Ford Motor Company. In 1903, Ford had its start and became incorporated with 12 investors and 1,000 shares. By October 1st of 1903, Ford Motor Company had turned its first profit of $37,000. In 1908, they sold 15 million Model Ts. Model Ts were cars that were simple, affordable, and durable. They changed the entire view set that people had of automobiles as no longer being something that was just a luxurious novelty, but something that was affordable and good transport. In 1917, Ford constructed the River Road Complex. The River Road Complex became the largest integrated factory in the world by the following decade. The self-contained complex had a wide array of industries necessary to produce cars, including steel mills, tire factory, glass factory, a power plant, and a reception depot for coal, iron, ore, rubber, and lumber. In 1932, Ford introduced the flathead V8 engine. This V8 engine was the first commercially successful, and it remained in production for over 22 years. In 1956, Ford became a publicly traded company. Their Ford initially public offering of common stock shares was the largest in IPO history. In 1961 to 1974, Ford owned Philco. During this time, the company produced consumer electronics, computer systems, and military projects. They also designed, equipped, and staffed Mission Control, which eventually put a man on the moon. In 1976, Ford of Europe introduced the Ford Fiesta. The subcompact hatchback became the first internationally successful front-wheel drive model. In 1986, Ford introduced the modular assembly line at the St. Louis assembly plant and made use of automated assembly lines to produce vehicle sub-assemblies. This system is now used in most of Ford's plants. Today, Ford remains one of the top producers in the United States. Jim Hackett is the CEO and president of the Ford Motor Company. As I was researching the history of Ford, it became very apparent to me that they played such an integral part throughout the entire U.S. history. They helped in so many of the war efforts, and some even say that they helped establish a middle class, and that in their factories they hired a good amount of the population, and they gave them higher wages and more leisure time. And because of that, they kind of helped create this new class that wasn't there before. And they also have just been very innovative within automobiles and creating new ideas that are being used not only in their company, but in other companies, and have played such a major role. Some important numbers and statistics to make note of is there is 190,000 employees, 5.5 million vehicle output. They have a 2.8 million vehicles sold in North America. Ford also has 45 subsidiaries. Of these subsidiaries include automobile technology, financing, investment, and real estate companies. The Ford F-Series is the second best-selling light vehicle model worldwide, and the Ford is the top American car brand. These statistics are from 2018. Their top-selling cars in 2019 was their fifth top car was the Ford Focus, and they sold 114,045 in 2019. The Ford Taurus sold, or not Ford Taurus, the Ford Transit sold 153,867. The Ford Explorer sold 187,061. The Ford Escape sold 241,387. And the Ford F-Series sold 896,526, making it the best-selling truck for the 43rd year. All these numbers, like I said, were from 2019 and just in the United States, not including their branches all across the globe. Some important risk factors, because they are such a large company, they do have to mitigate a lot of possible risk. And so these are just a few that I feel like are some of the more important ones that they have to do. So with operational risk, they do have to make sure that they are process of becoming more, Ford is working on becoming more customer centric. And because of that, they are going through this global redesign. And they believe that their competitiveness depends greatly on this redesign, and this redesign being done successfully, not only in the United States, but across the world. Ford vehicles can also be affected by defects. Defects can result in delays of new model launches, recall campaigns, or increased warranty costs. Operational systems, security systems, and vehicles can all be affected by cyber incidents. And Ford's production, as well as Ford suppliers' productions, can be disrupted by labor issues, natural disasters, man-made disasters, financial distress, and production difficulties. Within the macroeconomics market and strategic risk, Ford's products, because Ford is a global company, they can be adversely affected by economic, geopolitical, protectionist trade policies or other events, including tariffs, or they were also affected by Brexit. Ford's product success depends greatly on market acceptance. If the market were to change their preference and they were not able to anticipate the change of the market, then Ford could be greatly affected by it, especially with their trucks, because they do sell so many of their trucks, and their revenue kind of depends so greatly on them being able to continue to sell those trucks. If the market just kind of changed ideas or wanted things to be more environmentally friendly and no longer saw the trucks as a good purchase, then that would really negatively impact them. Within financial risk, Ford receives governmental incentives, and if those could be subject to reduction or termination. And with Ford Credit, they could experience higher than expected credit losses, lower than anticipated residual values, or higher than expected return volumes for leased vehicles. Within their legal and regulatory risk, Ford may need to substantially modify its product plans to comply with safety, emission, fuel economy, autonomous vehicle, or other regulations that may change in the future. The worldwide automotive industry is proposals for additional regulations, and that continues to become primarily focused on the environment, including concerns about global climate change and its impact, vehicle safety, and energy independence. So this regulatory landscape is kind of in flux right now and can change on a very short notice. And so Ford is doing what they can to be on top of those changes that could be happening and understanding the regulations that are occurring. We're now going to talk about their financial and stock history. So here is their 5-year stock price, just so you can get a kind of a better picture. In 2001, they had their peak that was around $21, I believe, but as it decreased after that, and it has continued to decrease, it's decreasing at a pretty steady rate, aside from this year where things kind of dropped quite quickly. Overall, it's decreasing. I think that Ford has, while they still remain to be a very competitive and very strong automobile agency within the United States, I think that they fail to be able to compete in markets outside of the United States, and also they haven't really been able to come up with a very innovative product or in order to better compete with major competitors, which you'll see a little bit later on as I show the stock prices of other areas. Here's our 6-month stock price change, so you can kind of see that a little bit better. Obviously, they were affected, as many companies were, by the coronavirus. it kind of was a little bit of a slower slope, but then I have noticed of other stock prices, but they did hit their bottoming out in end of March kind of area. What they did do to kind of help mitigate their losses is that Ford actually started to use their factories to create masks for hospital workers. And so I think that that helped them kind of reestablish their company in order to use the circumstances, not necessarily to their advantage because they obviously make more money selling cars, but being able to make the most of the situation. So with this slide, like I said, we're going to talk about its competitors. Ford is the blue line, General Motors is the black line, and Toyota is the green line. This year has been a really great year for Toyota, not only in stock prices, but just in revenue. They have been able to really make a really great impact within the automobile industry and have made really great sales. General Motors, who is Ford's #1 competitor, has kind of been very similar in stock price also with Ford. But overall, I think that you can see that Ford has a higher PE ratio, but they also have lower dividends, and their 52-week range has been lower, but they also, compared to GM, they've been a little bit more steady, where GM dropped by quite a bit. And now we are going to look at the balance sheet. So here's just some financial highlights from their balance sheet. You can see that their adjusted cash flow stayed the same. Their revenue decreased by $4.4 billion. Their adjusted EBIT decreased by $600 million, and their adjusted EPS decreased by 11 cents. Their cash balance decreased by $800 million, but their liquidity increased by $1.2 billion between the years of 2018 and 2019. This is Ford's outlook for 2020. This is what they announced for what they believe their numbers will look like within this next year. This did come out before the coronavirus, so I think that that will have an effect on these numbers, but Ford has not announced what they believe this will affect their numbers. Their adjusted free cash flow is 2.4 to 3.4 billion. Their adjusted EBIT they believe will be between 5.6 and 6.6 billion. Their adjusted EPS will be between 0.94 and $1.20. Their capital spending will be between 6.8 and 7.3 billion. Their pension contributions will be between 0.6 to 0.8 billion. Their regular dividends will be about 15 cents a quarter, and their adjusted effective tax rate will be between the mid to high teens. Overall, their numbers are pretty standard to what we saw in 2018 and 2019, kind of a pretty safe bet. But their EBIT and EPS, they are expecting to decrease. I will have all my sources on a Google Drive that you can access. Yes, thank you so much. Have a good day.